The infrastructure deficit on our roads has gone from bad to worse, and despite the efforts by the federal and state governments, many of our roads today have become almost impassable. So how can this be redressed? I'm being joined on the News at 10 now by the Executive Director of Infrastructure Bank, Mr. Daudu, who's in our studio in Abuja. Mr. Daudu, it's great to have you on the News at 10 tonight. Thanks for joining us. You've watched the news reports. You've seen the bad roads we have in the country. They're in almost every state. You've also seen the ordeal that transporters have to go through and how much we're losing economically. Can we look to the Bank of Infrastructure for any hope or any remedy?
Thank you, Amarachi. Yes, I mean it's a terrible state of affairs nationwide. As was stated in your report, 90% of freight and passenger movement is done by road in Nigeria today. What the bank is doing and what it is proposing and acting as an advocacy of is involving the private sector more strongly in road development in Nigeria. Even the Nigerian infrastructure master plan, the integrated infrastructure master plan, which was developed by the National Planning Commission and the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, has stated that the infrastructure deficit nationwide needs to be addressed with a public-private sector partnership. And they're looking at maybe 40% of the funding coming from the public sector and 60% coming from the private sector. What we're doing at the Infrastructure Bank is to act as a bridge between those two sectors. We're also acting as a facilitator and a funder of projects such that we do things in a sustainable way, in a way that makes resources better used and better value for money in terms of project delivery.
Well, speaking of project delivery, there's still more roads that still need attention. It's more infrastructure that also still need attention. If you look at other parts of the world where you have the infrastructure bank, take for instance Canada, these banks, they're the ones that do these things so that, you know, at this period of time when we have the rainy season, we're not going through what we're going through. But we seem to be able to talk about the problem. We seem to know what the solution is, but it just seems like the solution is coming much slower than expected.
Yes, I mean, you know, the focus tonight is on road infrastructure, but the infrastructure deficit is obviously much wider than that. In these countries that you're discussing, Canada, the US, the UK, probably about 60% or so of their freight and passenger movement is done by road. Now, what is it that's the difference between those countries and Nigeria, where 90% plus, as was stated in your report, is done by road? What they have is other transportation infrastructure. They have their ports, which are working well. They have aviation, obviously, working well. And what that does is to reduce the pressure on our roads. You know, the development of infrastructure in these countries also didn't take place, you know, in overnight. They have consistently invested over many, many years on infrastructure development in their countries. What we need to do in Nigeria is to take that same approach. We need to invest consistently over a long period of time such that, you know, delivery can be made and can be sustained. In Nigeria today, on the road sector, for example, we're looking at about 3 trillion per year to develop our roads. Budgetary allocation is probably in the region of 200 billion, of naira. Now, how are we going to make that a gap of 2.8 billion? Well, it's not just by you know, increasing budgetary allocation, as we already know. The government funds are limited. We need to have a better structure to allow private sector funding to come in and to come in quickly, such that projects can be delivered on time, on budget, and in a way that will allow projects to actually conclude and allow our infrastructure gap to be filled.
Well, as you said, 3 trillion naira is required annually. Well, analysts say for the next 10 years for the roads to bridge the gap in infrastructure deficits in Nigeria. So will the Bank of Infrastructure be here for the long run? And do you think this is possible?
Yes, I think it's imminently possible. We're here for the long run. The mission of the bank is to deliver infrastructure in Nigeria in such a way that it can enhance their productivity across the country. If we are able to deliver infrastructure in a sustainable manner, in a way that allows movement of freight and movement of people, we can grow the economy in a sustainable fashion. By growth of economy, we'll also have socio-economic development. Nigeria can be a better place for us all to live. The bank has been in existence for 25 years. We're here to stay, and we're here to stay for Nigeria's infrastructure development, achieve goals and objectives.
Mr. Taiwo Daudu, thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10. It's been a pleasure having you on tonight.